It's a beautiful day. Greetings from Berlin to everybody. Sun is shining, spring is in full blossom, and we have to stay inside, mainly. But it's good. It gives us the opportunity to meet with all of us, all of you, and have a very interesting webinar this morning about doing business in Germany. Some wise men said, never let a good crisis go unwasted. Yeah, carpe diem, use the opportunity, use the day, use the times. And sometimes that is a good strategy. And it's also a strategy we in the AHK kind of apply. I will drop a few sentences later about it, but first of all, I want to introduce our two experts today, Daniel and Torsten. They will, and they can much better introduce themselves a little when they start to speak. But Torsten does know the Baltics from a first-hand experience. In fact, he has been working there a little bit. What exactly he will tell you himself. And Daniel also has a very interesting perspective. He will be the one without the German accent, and what's behind that, I think he will also explain you. Yeah, we're very happy to partner up with GTAI, Germany Trade and Invest. This is these are our brothers organization who are there for the investment promotion of Germany, and also, but that's not so important today, gathering informations supporting the German export business. Yeah, these are the two fields of the GTAI. And so I think these are the right guys for our today's topic, and they have the expert knowledge. And yeah, now my 3 sentences about the AHK. Many of you know us. We are the German-Baltic Chamber of Commerce with offices in Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius. In fact, also some of my colleagues are joining us today in the webinar. And our job is to promote, of course, the German incoming business into the Baltics, but we are not a one-way street. We also, and it's a growing interest, it's a growing direction, support Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian companies in their internationalization process, in going to Germany and doing business in Germany and opening up a daughter company. And that's also why it fits very good to our agenda to partner up with GTAI, with whom we have also cooperation agreement. In fact, we work very closely, and I have a staff member in each country who is designated to be a point of contact for GTAI. So we in the AHK have switched also into Corona crisis mode. It was, I have to say, quite easy because the Baltics are very digital. Home office was not an issue to switch. You might find it self-explanatory, but in Germany, some organizations really struggled, I can tell you. And yeah, we also try to use and to try, we're not trying, we are fully operational, and we are there for our members, but also for our clients who are interested in doing business in and with Germany. And we are, and so I would also, yeah, kind of motivate you, or I want to encourage you to use the time which you might have now to start on that project, because yeah, I think we should not forget it's a man-made crisis. It's not an economic crisis as such that was produced by the economic system. It was a crisis that was produced by a political conscious will to shut down several sectors of economy. And of course, this can be turned around quite easily. And we will speak about it a little later, what our economists expect for the time to come. But let's not get into a gloomy mode. I think it is not necessary. And let me quote The Atlantic, one of the US medias that yesterday published an article praising Chancellor Merkel's leadership as a scientific leader, because she has studied science, and that is the difference, that Germany is going quite well through the crisis. Let's see how that is. I think it's a bit early to judge, but I think it's always good to keep a cold head. Now, I want to finish up with announcing that we, at the end of this week, we'll publish our, I don't know if you, if all of you know our also little project. It's called Baltic Business Quarterly. It's in fact the only English language business magazine for the Baltic states. And you can find it in the App Store and the Google Play, but also you can find it in kiosks, airports in Estonia and Latvia. We have produced a Corona crisis edition, and we'll publish that early next week. So we'll send you a link to that. It's going to be a digital edition because, for saving costs and for assuming that not everybody can go to the kiosk. And that's also something we have to do. We have to cut a bit the cost because our business is very hard hit. Our business is representing the fairs, German fairs abroad, and all the delegation trips, which cannot happen at the moment. So without taking more time, I would hand over to Torsten and wish us all a very successful webinar. We're gonna record it, the video and the presentation, and put it on the website. If you have questions, let's also have it interactively. We'll make a small, first Torsten will present, and then Daniel will follow, and we'll make a little break. And please write the questions when you have them in the chat. That's, I think, the easiest. And since we are about almost 60 people here, and then let's see, at the end we might have a little discussion. We prepared to take even 5 or 10 minutes over time, so we can make up the time I used now. And I hand over to Torsten, and stay safe, stay healthy, and welcome everybody. And I hand over.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation to join the webinar. As already said, I was lucky enough to manage our office for the Baltic States and Finland for 5 years. So I was very often in the Baltic States. I had a lot of cooperation with the Chamber, with many institutions and companies. And I'm quite glad to have the opportunity now to do something again with the Baltic States. Me and my colleague Daniel Stevens, we will present you a little overview about Corona in Germany. We will do it in such way that I will start now, giving a little idea or overview of the impact of Corona at the moment and the forecasts resulting out of the Corona crisis. And then my colleague Daniel will continue explaining a little bit the concrete measures we have chosen in Germany and the general opportunities for companies who want to invest and locate to Germany. So let's start. This is our presentation. Oops, sorry. Okay, yes. Well, as I said, let's begin with the immediate impact of the Corona pandemic crisis since February, March. Here you can see the climate index of one of the leading German research institutes, IFO. They regularly, every month, ask German companies about their expectations. And you can see actually that in March, the index of expectations in the German manufacturing industry dropped 16.6% compared to February. So in 1 month, 16.6% decrease. That is the strongest drop since the financial crisis in 2009. If you have a look at the service sector, it's even worse. That index dropped 25%. That is the strongest decrease since 2005, when actually IFO began to start the index at all. So it's the worst development ever. We already have predictions about the German GDP development in this year and next year. This is done by the 5 leading research institutes of Germany. They always make a common forecast every few months. And so you can see that actually the prediction for this year is a GDP drop of 4.2%. Why is that so? You can see that especially the export of goods and the import of goods is affected. So this is of course usually a strength of the German economy, the strong export and the openness. At the moment it turns out to be a weakness. So this is one of the main reasons. But also consumption is going to be lower 2.5%. Because of course we have quarantine, shops are closed, and over the whole year that would be a decrease of 2.5%. Investments, we have to say, is only dropping quite moderately, about 0.5%. However, next year, if the corona pandemic is under control in the course of this year, in the next weeks, maybe until summer, German GDP next year will have a strong increase of more than, or about 5.8%, almost 6%. So actually, if this goes according to plan, German economy will have a stronger performance at the end of next year than before the crisis. And again, we can see that the assumption is that especially the export and import of goods, the trade will be the main driver, but also consumption will go up quite strongly, investments also 1%. Germany, to counter the problems and to help companies which are affected by less turnover and which are in the liquidity problem, the federal government and parliament agreed an additional debt of 156 billion euros in March. This is of course a strong deterioration of the German lending and borrowing. Actually we have to say that the years before were quite good. We had a constant budget surplus since 2014. So actually last year there was a surplus of 1.4%. So thankfully, because of that, the public finances were in quite a good order before the crisis came. Of course, this year the prediction is that there will be a debt of 4.8%. Because of the good situation in the last years, the total government debt has decreased constantly from more than 80%, 82.4% after the financial crisis, immediately after the financial crisis, to below 60% in 2019. And also, we have to say that the financing conditions for the German government are actually quite positive, because the financing condition is such that actually there's a negative interest rate for German government bonds and a negative yield. This means that investors are actually getting a little bit less money back when they borrow from the German government at the moment, for example, 10 years bonds. And these are, of course, quite positive conditions. So this would be it for the moment from my side. Do you have any questions?
Hey, Mr. Pauly, Andreas. I have one question. If you would take this slide forward, so with the debt that you just explained, how much percent would the German debt be with the spendings that we're doing now to manage the crisis?
You mean this slide you can see at the moment?
Correct.
Yeah, it will be definitely above 60%. So maybe 63–4%.
That minor. Interesting. Okay, thanks.
Well, it's an increase anyway.
Yep. Okay.
Do you have any more questions?
Maybe one more. This scenario that you showed, that the rebound to 5.6% in 2021 will happen, is that considering an reopening in the next 3–4 weeks, or what is the fundamental assumption
Yes,
behind
the
that?
fundamental assumption is that there will be a strong, let's say, easing of the measures in the course of the second quarter, then even more so in the course of the second half year.
Thank you.
But also, of course, we have to say it also depends on other countries, because the export and import of goods are very significant in this projection. And this, of course, is not dependent on Germany alone, but on the trading partners. So there's a certain degree of...
My question via the chat, so maybe you could have a look there. But basically the question is, how realistic do you assess these predictions for 2021?
Well, I think they are quite realistic, of course, yes, I would say so. You know, at the moment we have a certain degree of uncertainty generally, but there are other predictions. There have been made predictions before in March, and they all point to the same scenario, that there will be a recession in 2020, but there will be definitely a recovery next year if something unforeseen doesn't happen. But according to the situation we have at the moment and the outlook, according to this, there will be definitely economic growth again, and probably quite strongly. But the condition, of course, is that the German companies get well through the crisis, together with the measures we are just going to explain in a minute. This is, of course, a really critical precondition for the recovery next year.
Yeah, there was a question from the chat. Is there a forecast based on industries? I think this points yeah, also to the direction that different industries are differently hit, and of course the difference between service and the production sector is there. And maybe you could include, do we have any updated data what is already opening up, because we have announcement of Volkswagen and other big players to open up the plants, and that would, I think, trigger a lot of other business that is relevant also for our region, as they are supplier or part of the supply chain.
We do have first companies opening up factories, a few factories. For example, Volkswagen is opening just a few factories at the moment, or in the days to come. We do not have, unfortunately, an overall schedule of, let's say, all the manufacturing industry. The service sector is a bit easier to predict because the political measures affect the shops directly, and this differs a little bit in Germany according to the state you are in. So actually the state of Bavaria, the state of Berlin can have different regulations when a shop in a certain segment is allowed to open again. but there are figures according to sectors. I suggest the easiest would be if you have questions, we can answer them. If you have concrete questions, is there a figure for the, I don't know, automotive industry or something like that? We can answer that maybe after the webinar.
Yeah, and in fact, there was just now in the chat. What about trucks, MAN and others? If you don't have, then
I think it would be the best way to look it up after. I mean, it's very specific and maybe not interesting to everybody, but I think we can have a look if we can answer the questions later.
Okay, great. Then I would say for the first part, I thank you very much, Torsten. And now I welcome Daniel Stevens, who will join us. And Daniel, yeah, please also introduce yourself shortly and how you became a real German.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Daniel Stevens. I'm the manager of financing and incentives here at Germany and Trade and Invest, which means I consult to incoming investors on how to obtain government grants and get access to various investment funds for things such as research and development or human resources as part of their incoming investment projects. I just want to make sure, are we still able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are. I see both. I see your face and a bit larger the presentation. That's at least what I get.
I'm just going to move my face because not everybody needs to see that. And I will move to page 7. Here we go. Okay, a word of what or two.
We can still see you, just that you are aware.
Yeah, me up in the top right corner.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
How do I get rid of this?
If you mute your camera.
That's better.
Not yet. I mean, still see you.
Oh.
Now you're gone.
Now I'm gone. Excellent. Right. Okay. Yeah. 2 words of warning. Firstly, I think we're running a little bit over time, so I'm going to rifle through these slides quite fast. Secondly, there's a fair bit of information on these slides because, as I'm aware, the slides will be available to the people who are watching the webinar who are interested in the information. So I've written the slides both to present and as a source of information to be read after the presentation. So although I'm going through quickly, don't feel compelled to read every single word on every single slide. Listen to me rather, if you can stand it. And I will be highlighting the most important parts on each slide with the cursor. As you can see, the German government is willing to do whatever it takes. That was a direct quote, to stabilize the economy. There's been many financial measures put in place. Many of you will have heard about the Kurzarbeitergeld, where governments subsidize companies to help put their employees on part-time wages or part-time hours rather than retaining them full-time and having to pay them full-time. And there's been a vast number of different liquidity loans at very preferential rates from the State Development Bank to help companies cover up their shortfalls of liquidity. Most of them tailor-made to different sizes of company and different companies in different stages of development. But the bottom line, as it has been for Germany in any financial crisis, is this last sentence here, avoiding a substantial loss of companies and particularly avoiding a loss of qualified workers. Germany has positioned itself historically over the past 10 or 20 years as a place of innovation and a place of the leading edge of industry. And it values and intends to retain its qualified workers and its skilled workers, as it says there, at any cost, because when the economy recovers, as it usually does, these skilled people and qualified workers and senior researchers and developments will be the people leading the technology to take Germany out of the recession in the best manner possible. Additional to the national state health, each of Germany's 16 federal states has been creating its own economic support schemes relative to its own particular populations and situations. As you can see, Many of them are not so large, although there are some states since this slide was made that have announced a couple of measures more. Obviously, the two at the top, Nordrhein-Westfalen and Bavaria, are the two ones with by far the biggest support schemes of their own created by the state themselves. This simply reflects the fact that these two states have been, by and large, the worst hit by the coronavirus crisis in Germany in terms of people infected and deaths, and have often had the most stringent measures applied on their population, so the most economically limiting measures applied. It also reflects the fact that these two have the other states with the most diverse economies in Germany. So the states have been required to put forward more help measures to many different kinds of companies and many different companies in different situations, far more so than other states which have a particular industrial bent. So, however, as Torsten said, we'll get through the crisis, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll be recovering, and hopefully by next year we can start becoming a centre of investment again. And Germany, in terms of financing, has been, in my opinion, particularly interesting for incoming investors in terms of the public financial support that an investing company can get. As you can see on the screen, funding is broadly divided into funding for 5 different categories: investments, capital, research and development, personnel, and other specific purposes. And the instruments are divided broadly into 5 categories as well: those of grants, loans, guarantees, public guarantees, equity capital, and mezzanine capital. By far the most important of these for an incoming investor with a sizable project is the grant. The grants, I'm going to skip on. The grants are the main funding instrument for an incoming investor into Germany is the investment grant from the EU-funded Joint Task Programme, excuse me. This intends to fund projects that enable job creation. It also intends to fund regions of Germany which are deemed to be less economically developed than other regions. And it simply offers investors non-repayable cash grants, which, if you are a small to medium enterprise with the right kind of project, investing in the right kind of area in Germany, can enable you to cover up to 40% of your eligible costs. Important for an investor to know what eligible cost is. These costs are assessed either on the purchase or production of the buildings, machinery, equipment, and intangible assets required to realize the investment, or the salary costs in terms of the jobs created by the investment project over a 2-year period. There are several conditions attached to these cash grants. The 2 you can see there, the requirements, the creation of long-term quality jobs, and the fact that the equipment and the jobs must remain on the site of the investment for at least 5 years. Those are the 2 most important ones. There is also an aspect of something needs to be produced in terms of the investment project, and that something needs to be then exported outside a 50-kilometer radius of the investment project. So sales and marketing, or purely sales and marketing officers, for example, would not be eligible for this grant because they don't physically produce anything. It's simply a case of shuffling the value on. Another requirement is that you must have 25% of the capital for the investment project must be procured by the company itself from a non-subsidized source. So a private loan or own capital or investor capital from external, whatever, but from a non-subsidized source. As you can see, these are the regions which are most heavily funded by the Joint Task Programme grant. You can see on the right of the screen a map of Germany which reflects the regions promoted. The darkest blue are the regions which have the heaviest incentives, and as you can see, that's the border region to Poland, all the way from the Baltic Sea coast all the way down to the border with the Czech Republic. This is the region which is eligible for up to 40% cash grant. As you can see from the table on the left, small enterprises receive more preferential treatment, as they are the ones with the highest likelihood of growth potential and probably the ones with the least amount of their own capital to invest, whereas large enterprises in border regions will benefit rather well, but in regions that are more developed or less funded by the program, a large enterprise will not receive such a significant grant. So the program is very much geared towards small to medium enterprises and very much geared towards areas that perhaps historically have not been so developed as others. The second probably main source of investment funding in Germany is that for research and development. The German government has committed to spending 3.5% of its GDP on research and development funding in the country. That applies for grants at a national and regional level, and obviously there are some EU level grants as well. I'll just move on. The EU level, the most important research and development grant is the Horizon. It's currently the Horizon 2020 project, an EU framework program. This will expire at the end of 2020, and it will be replaced. There's a piece of there's a legal framework which has nearly been completed, but I imagine it should have been completed by now. But I imagine the coronavirus has delayed it a little bit. It will be replaced by a program called Horizon Europe, which will offer a little bit more of the fund, but almost exactly the same investment conditions. This works on a program of calling for project proposals, so announcing specific areas of research that need to be undertaken, and invites companies to answer these calls for proposals with project submissions which would meet the criteria, and then they would receive the funding. The funding goes up to 100% of the salary cost involved. At national level, so we're talking now specifically German funds, you have the High-Tech Strategy 2025, which is projects focusing on future fields of activity. The 6 of them are listed there. And then you have technology open programs such as the Central Innovation for Mittelstand companies. Interestingly, the Central Innovation Program for Mittelstand companies, for SMEs, breaks the normal EU definition of what a small to medium enterprise is and takes project submissions from companies up to a size of 500 employees rather than 250. Both of those are, the Central Innovation Program is also technology open, so it will accept any reasonable project proposal under 3 broad research categories of fundamental research, industrial research, or experimental development. At regional level, there are programs available in all the German federal states, funding small research and development projects, which are normally technology open. They simply need to add value to the state and they need to be commercialized at the location of where the research and development is performed. In terms of training and hiring personnel, grants and incentives are very much focused towards people who are already unemployed. The measures, as you can see, are administered by the Federal Employment Agency, who will assist an incoming investor with support in its recruitment, also support in its training, and certainly for the first year, will support with up to 50% wage subsidies, assuming that the employee who's been taken on was previously unemployed or has been previously disadvantaged. On-the-job training is also a matter for further subsidies if a company is looking to change direction in terms of ensuring its survival. The government will step in to help train people who need to learn new skills in order to ensure that the jobs and the company survives a threat, existential threat. Sorry. So once you've worked your way through the grants, there is a wide range of loans for pretty much all funding purposes, generally available from either the state development banks or from the German National State Development Bank, the KfW, the KfW. There is a huge variety of loans available, particularly for R&D and especially for energy efficiency. There are some very preferential terms for energy efficiency and various other specific purposes. And at the European level, you also have the European Investment Bank. Now, it sounds like you have to go through a vast number of different banks to work out what it is you want. That's not strictly true. All of these loans are available to investment companies through their own high street bank, and the money will be supplied to the high street bank from the development bank. So the application portal or place location of application is generally the same. It's worth pointing out at this moment that a combination of all these different financing instruments is often possible. The basic principle to adhere to is that a project or an aspect of a project cannot be subsidized twice. So, for example, for a company with a large project and they're looking to get the GRW grant, they could come with a little bit of their own capital. They could get the 40% grants. They could finance another 20% with a loan from a state development bank. Then if they were building a particularly energy efficient factory, they could finance that portion of the investment project with a much lower interest loan from the state development bank. And then for the research and development aspect of their project, they could get a research and development grant, which would cover up to 100% of their wages just for that specific part. So a combination of these instruments is possible, but it's important that the same aspect of any project is not covered by two different types of funding at the same time, the so-called double subsidy aspect. State guarantees are used obviously for larger projects where a company may need to take on significant amounts of debt and therefore may become a higher risk, or maybe a higher risk in terms of finance. This is really simply a way of spreading the risk around. So the projects will be analysed by a consultancy, and then it will be recommended either the states that it's safe for the state to guarantee the financing or that it's not. And in which case, as you can see, the state will guarantee up to 80% of the respective amount lent in terms of the loan taken up for the financing of the project. Equity capital is available from several publicly supported funds. The two most important ones of these are probably the high-tech founders funds, the high-tech Gründerfonds in German, and Kuparian. These will apply mostly to startups. In the sense of Kuparian, they will give you a maximum investment volume of 10 million euros, and the high-tech founders fund a maximum of 2 million euros. The average investment amount tend to be much less than that. They also look at different stages. The high-tech Gründerfonds looks at seed financing to help a company just get off the ground and get itself operational. Kuparian will look at a little bit more in terms of development and expansion and look at supporting the A, B, and C series rounds. Kuparian works on the basis of co-investment, and the high-tech founders fund is for autonomous investment. So that in a nutshell is what you can expect if you're looking to invest in Germany and move to Germany in the wake of the corona crisis. As you can see, Germany Trade and Invest has its own dedicated coronavirus website where all the updates and all the different financial measures are regularly entered and put in, and also you can see some aspects of the tax and legal implications for companies who may be struggling during the corona crisis. Just to give you a little overview on what it is we do, as Florian, I believe, said at the start, we're the Economic Development Agency of the Federal Republic of Germany. There is a picture of all 500 of us. Splits between Berlin, where we deal with incoming investment, Bonn, where we deal with outgoing investment and exports, and 50 offices around the world where we have people compiling reports on the various locations, including one in Helsinki. Our four core activities: export promotion, investor consulting, which is what we do here in our Berlin office, location marketing, and particular drive for the new federal states. As you will see, there's still a move going to bring them up to the full level of economic development relative to the West Germany that existed before the fall of the war. We give incoming investors strategy development support, tax and legal information support, funding and financing options advice, which is my area of expertise, and location identification. So when a project comes in, we perform all those three consulting aspects, help the investor identify a good location for this project, and then pass the project on to the respective states economic development agency for them to realise the project in full. And that is Germany Trade and Invest. Here are our contact details, and I am open for questions.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Daniel. And in fact, we have some questions in the chat. About the situation in the Baltics, I have already put also in the chat a link to our website where we have collected information about the current situation. And we also monitor at the moment economic predictions. And as soon as there comes out an updated version, we will send around. So please subscribe to our newsletter and have a look at the website. And if you have particular questions, you can always also email me or our team. Then there was a question about other regions, Asia, US, South America, same trends for 2021. Well, I'm not sure if we are really prepared to speak about it now.
We can't.
We can't, yeah. What I can offer you is we have last week published the latest World Business Outlook. So please contact me. I will send you a link, or you can also Google it on a DIHK website. There's English-German version. It's made of a survey from all the AHKs worldwide, asking their members, what do you expect to happen in the next 12 months in your business and in the economy as such. And that is quite, it's one of the most closest to companies survey worldwide that has been conducted. It's an interesting source of information. Yeah. What are the base hourly rates for investment consultation service? Asks Thomas.
What? I didn't hear that.
What are the base hourly rates for investment consultation services? So I think he means if you have a project and want to do an investment in Germany, please contact us. And the good news is that lots of the first initial consultation is free. And
all of it.
All of it, the consultation of GTAI and AHK is free. But once, of course, there's also private. I mean, we cannot design your investment project. Yeah, we can advise you on the promotion programs and such. Good. Yeah, thanks. There's also a GTAI website about the worldwide situation. Will German companies continue to invest in the Baltics? I think the simple answer is yes. If we are not facing a world collapse, which I don't think we are, then I think, in fact, the crisis has the potential to be the Baltics come out even stronger. Why? Because we have in Germany now a discussion that we need to keep some production and investment of important goods, for example, protective equipment, in Germany or at least in Europe, and not somewhere on a different continent. Because at the moment we experience a huge dependency on Asian providers. yeah, I think I'll leave it like this. And we are collecting there also information right now. And I think there's an opportunity to have partnership. And Germany, I think they have now released a program of 7 billion euros to buy crisis relevant equipment. Yeah. So from government side, additional. So if there's somebody producing or having opportunities, also please contact us. Okay, then I don't see any further questions here in the chat, or also I maybe I give one last chance if somebody wants to speak up. I don't see that happening. We still 59 participants. Great. A lot of you stick with us. It means we have probably given you some information. We hope it was relevant for you. Please let us know. Give us feedback also. Let us know if we should do another webinar, maybe with a different topic, or repeat it or whatever. Let us know what you need. We are there for you. Whatever your needs are in information or support. Also, if you want to go and now use the time for making an investment project in Germany, do it. You see, business is open. Germany is open. We are already preparing for the growth happening, for the recovery. And yeah, I don't know, Torsten and Daniel, do you have some final messages, or will we just say goodbye?
Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you in a couple of months.
Great.
We're always there for you.
Cool. Okay, then have a great, strong business week, and stay healthy and all the best, and see you soon. Hope sound and healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Sure,